It was supposed to be the most peaceful night of the year, but on Christmas Eve, Sebena's routine turned deadly. A quiet town, a lonely road, and a meticulously planned ambush that no one saw coming. What really happened that night will shock you. Christmas Eve settled quietly over the town of Brookhaven, wrapping the streets in a thin layer of snow and a false sense of peace. Houses glowed with soft lights, and the air carried the distant sound of holiday music fading behind closed doors. Most families were already inside, sharing meals and traditions that repeated every year without change. Outside, the town felt empty, almost frozen in time. Sebena moved through this calm without drawing attention. At 29, she lived a life built on routine and caution. She worked steadily, paid her bills, and avoided unnecessary risks. That evening, she finished her last errands before the holiday, carrying wrapped gifts and grocery bags to her car. Nothing about her actions suggested fear or urgency. To anyone watching, she appeared relaxed, focused only on getting home before the weather worsened. The roads were clear and traffic was light. Snow reflected the glow of streetlights, making everything seem softer and safer than it truly was. Jennifer followed the same route she had taken hundreds of times before, trusting familiarity to guide her through the night. She did not know that her habits had been noticed, measured, and remembered. Somewhere behind her, another presence moved with intention. It did not rush or reveal itself. It waited, patient and unseen, blending into the quiet of the holiday. Christmas Eve offered perfect cover when distractions were plenty and witnesses were few. As Jennifer's car disappeared down the road, the calm of the night remained undisturbed, hiding the fact that this peaceful evening was already marked by violence waiting to happen. By morning, that silence would mean something far darker than anyone could imagine for them. Sebena was known for keeping her life carefully organized and largely private. She woke at the same time each morning, followed the same commute, and rarely shared personal struggles with others. Friends described her as dependable and calm, someone who preferred stability over excitement. She kept her home neat, her schedule full, and her emotions guarded. Beneath that orderly surface, however, Jennifer carried pressures few people noticed. Over the past year, her expenses had grown while her income stayed the same. Medical bills from a minor accident and unexpected family obligations slowly drained her savings. She never complained publicly, choosing instead to manage the stress quietly and alone. This habit of silence would later make it difficult for investigators to understand her situation. In the weeks leading up to Christmas, Jennifer made several decisions that seemed ordinary at the time. She reviewed financial documents, updated records, and organized paperwork she had ignored for years. She also reduced her digital presence, deleting old messages and clearing email accounts. None of it appeared alarming on its own, yet together it formed a pattern that felt deliberate. Those closest to her noticed subtle changes. Jennifer became more cautious, double-checking details and asking careful questions about contracts and obligations. She appeared distracted but focused, as if preparing for something unseen. What no one realized was that these quiet adjustments would later become crucial clues. Her structured life, once a symbol of safety, had unknowingly become a map for someone else to follow toward a carefully planned end. That unseen path would soon collide with fate, turning preparation into tragedy and exposing how control can fail when trust is misplaced without warning ever. Jennifer's drive home that night followed a route she knew by heart, a path shaped by years of habit and comfort. One section of the road curved away from the main street and past a closed warehouse that had stood empty for years. It was a shortcut many locals used, especially when traffic was light and weather conditions were calm. On Christmas Eve, the road was nearly silent. Later that night, Jennifer's car was found there, resting at an odd angle near the shoulder. The engine was cold, but the headlights were still on, cutting through the falling snow. There were no signs of a crash, no broken glass, and no damage to the vehicle. Everything about the scene felt paused, as if time had stopped abruptly. Footprints marked the snow beside the car, leading toward the warehouse before disappearing. Investigators noted scuff marks that suggested a brief struggle, but nothing chaotic or rushed. Jennifer's belongings remained inside the car, neatly placed and untouched. Her phone, purse, and keys were all accounted for, ruling out robbery as a motive. The location raised troubling questions. There was no reason for Jennifer to stop there willingly, yet nothing showed she had been forced off the road. The absence of skid marks suggested she slowed down intentionally. The darkness, isolation, and familiarity of the road made it an ideal place for something to go unnoticed. What seemed like a harmless shortcut now appeared carefully chosen. The abandoned road, quiet and forgotten, became the first clear sign that Jennifer's murder was not random, but planned with precision and patience in advance by someone who understood her routines and trusted the silence completely that night. The discovery came early on Christmas morning, when the town was still quiet and wrapped in snow. A delivery driver noticed the car parked strangely near the abandoned warehouse and reported it to police. Officers arrived expecting a breakdown or accident, but the scene quickly told a different story. The vehicle showed no damage, and the doors were unlocked, with headlights still glowing in the darkness. Nearby, partially hidden behind stacked pallets, Jennifer Sebena's body was found lying motionless in the snow. The position of her body suggested she had not fallen naturally, but had been placed there deliberately. Medical examiners later confirmed the cause of death was blunt force trauma to the head. There were no signs of sexual assault, no defensive wounds, and no indication of a prolonged struggle. The controlled nature of the injuries pointed to an attack that was quick, intentional, and deeply personal. News of the murder spread rapidly, breaking the illusion of safety the town had always relied on. Christmas celebrations were interrupted by flashing lights, police tape, and fear moving through the streets. Residents struggled to understand how such violence could arrive on a night meant for peace and reflection. Investigators knew immediately that this was not a random act, but a calculated killing. The timing, location, and lack of witnesses suggested careful planning and chilling confidence. Brookhaven awoke to a nightmare, unaware that this crime would haunt the town for years to come. The case would soon reveal secrets, mistakes, and motives hidden beneath familiar faces and festive lights that no one suspected during the long winter that followed the discovery and changed everything forever for the grieving community and its memory. Investigators moved quickly, knowing the first days after a murder mattered most. Attention turned toward someone once close to Jennifer, a former romantic partner whose past connection raised immediate concern. Their relationship had ended months earlier, but records showed lingering tension involving money and trust. Friends mentioned unresolved issues, and old messages suggested emotional strain. Police focused heavily on this individual, searching for signs of anger or revenge. His movements on Christmas Eve were examined in detail, and his phone records were pulled. At first, the case seemed to point directly toward him. The town and local media quietly accepted this direction, believing the answer had already been found. However, as evidence was collected, the narrative began to weaken. Location data placed him miles away during the estimated time of death. Surveillance footage supported his timeline, and witnesses confirmed his presence elsewhere. No physical evidence connected him to the abandoned road or Jennifer's car. Despite suspicion, investigators could not ignore the facts. The lack of proof forced them to step back and reconsider assumptions made too quickly. This shift frustrated the community, who wanted closure and clarity. The idea that the obvious suspect might be innocent introduced a deeper fear, suggesting the real killer remained free. By eliminating the first suspect, detectives uncovered something more troubling. The crime was not driven by visible conflict or emotional chaos. It hinted at planning beyond personal resentment, suggesting motives hidden beneath calm behavior and calculated decisions yet to be uncovered soon. That realization shifted the investigation entirely, opening paths no one expected, and proving that patience, not impulse, would be required to expose the truth behind Jennifer's death, at last slowly unfolding ahead. As the investigation widened, detectives began tracing Jennifer's financial history, searching for motives that did not involve emotion. Bank records revealed recent activity that stood out from her normal habits. Small transfers, new accounts, and signed documents appeared in the weeks before her death. Each detail suggested careful planning rather than sudden stress. One discovery changed the direction of the case. Jennifer had co-signed a private loan connected to a struggling business venture. The agreement included several names, spreading responsibility evenly. Yet days before Christmas, An amendment removed one signature entirely. That change shifted full financial liability onto Jennifer alone, leaving others free from debt. Investigators questioned why Jennifer would agree to such a revision. Emails and documents showed she had been reassured the change was temporary and necessary. The language used was formal, calm, and convincing. Nothing appeared openly threatening, but the result was devastating. If the loan failed, Jennifer would carry the entire burden. The timing felt deliberate. With insurance policies recently updated and debts quietly redirected, her death would erase obligations for others while triggering payouts. What once seemed like ordinary paperwork now looked like preparation for profit. This paper trail revealed a motive rooted in money and control. It also suggested intelligence and patience, not desperation. Someone had carefully positioned themselves to benefit without appearing involved. The investigation no longer focused on who was angry, but on who stood to gain the most from Jennifer's silence forever. This realization forced detectives to reconsider every assumption, understanding that the killer likely hid behind professionalism, trust, and legal complexity, using documents as weapons long before violence ever occurred that cold winter season in Brookhaven town itself at last. Months passed with little progress, and the case began to cool. During a routine review, an analyst re-examined security footage from a gas station near the warehouse. The footage had been checked before, but only briefly, and nothing obvious stood out at the time. This second look changed everything. In the background of the video, Jennifer's car could be seen leaving the station. Several seconds later, another vehicle appeared, parked farther away with its lights turned off. It remained still as Jennifer drove past, then slowly pulled onto the road behind her. The movement was subtle, easy to miss without careful attention. Investigators enhanced the footage and tracked the vehicle's path through nearby cameras. The pattern showed it following Jennifer for several miles before both cars disappeared from view near the abandoned road. The vehicle was registered locally, yet its owner had never been interviewed. This oversight raised serious concerns. The owner had no criminal record and appeared cooperative on the surface, which may have led investigators to overlook him early on. However, records showed he had ties to the same financial agreement Jennifer was involved in. The discovery reframed the timeline. Jennifer was not alone that night by chance. She was being watched and guided into isolation. What once looked like coincidence now appeared intentional. The investigation regained momentum, driven by the realization that a critical witness had been hiding in plain sight, silently moving behind the scenes while suspicion pointed elsewhere for far too long. This single detail exposed how small errors can delay justice, allowing calculated crimes to remain buried beneath routine reviews, overlooked data, and assumptions that dangerous truths are always obvious at first glance alone. With new evidence in hand, investigators began reconstructing Jennifer's final movements minute by minute. The pattern no longer suggested chance or panic, but careful direction. Phone records revealed a short incoming call moments before her car turned off the main road. The call lasted less than 30 seconds, yet its timing proved critical. It came from a prepaid phone with no subscriber information, a device designed to disappear. Detectives believe the call served a single purpose: to guide Jennifer to the isolated location without raising suspicion. There were no repeated calls, no messages, and no attempts to contact her afterward. This silence supported the idea of a planned encounter rather than an argument or emergency. Whoever contacted her knew exactly what they needed and when. The abandoned service road now looked less like a random choice and more like a trap. It was familiar enough not to alarm her, but secluded enough to avoid witnesses. Snowfall helped erase immediate evidence, and the holiday ensured fewer people were nearby. Every element aligned too neatly to be coincidence. Investigators also noted Jennifer showed no signs of trying to flee. There were no long drag marks or defensive injuries. This suggested she trusted the person who stopped her, at least briefly. That trust became the final vulnerability used against her. The prepaid phone was eventually traced through purchase records to a small convenience store. Surveillance footage showed a hooded figure buying it weeks earlier. The image was unclear, but the timing matched the financial document changes. The pieces were now connecting. Jennifer had not been ambushed by chance, but guided step by step into a situation designed to end her life quickly and quietly. The trap had been set long before Christmas Eve, waiting patiently for the perfect moment to close. As evidence aligned, investigators focused on a former business associate whose name appeared repeatedly in Jennifer's records. He presented himself as professional, calm, and helpful, never drawing attention during early interviews. His connection to the loan was downplayed, described as minor and resolved. Yet document timelines told a different story. Days before Jennifer's death, his signature vanished from amended contracts, removing all legal risk from him alone. Insurance beneficiaries shifted soon after. If Jennifer died, the debt would collapse, and payouts would quietly cover remaining losses. The benefit was clear, immediate, and hidden behind legal wording. Phone data linked him indirectly to the prepaid device. Purchase locations, travel patterns, and surveillance footage overlapped just enough to form a chain. None of it proved guilt alone, but together it showed preparation. He had anticipated questions, cleaned records, and waited for the right night. Christmas Eve provided cover. Businesses closed early, roads emptied, and attention turned inward. Investigators believed he contacted Jennifer under the pretense of paperwork or clarification. The meeting was meant to be brief. Control was expected. Violence followed swiftly. When confronted with the evidence, his story shifted repeatedly. Small contradictions appeared, then larger ones. Alibis weakened under review. What once seemed like coincidence hardened into intent. Jennifer Sebena's death was no longer a mystery shaped by emotion or chaos. It was a financial decision executed with patience. The final revelation changed the case completely, proving that the most dangerous motives often hide behind contracts, calendars, and calm behavior. Waiting for the moment when silence feels safest to strike, and ensured investigators understood how deliberate planning can destroy lives without warning or visible anger ever present behind friendly professional appearances. After months of careful investigation, the case against Jennifer Sebena's former business associate reached its final stage. Each piece of evidence, the financial documents, the phone records, the surveillance footage, formed a pattern too precise to ignore. Investigators could now see how meticulously the crime had been planned. It was not a spontaneous act of rage or a random attack. It was patience, calculation, and opportunity executed with chilling efficiency. Arrest warrants were issued quietly at first, to avoid tipping off the suspect. Officers coordinated with local and federal agencies, ensuring no escape or destruction of evidence. When he was finally taken into custody, there was no struggle, no dramatic confrontation. He remained calm, almost clinical, as investigators presented the case against him. Every question he answered revealed more about how carefully he had prepared and how completely he had underestimated Jennifer's routines and the determination of those pursuing justice. The trial became a detailed account of planning, trust, and betrayal. Prosecutors highlighted the way documents had been manipulated, the timing of financial transfers, and the use of prepaid technology to maintain control and conceal identity. Each detail underscored a reality many found hard to accept. Jennifer's murder had been calculated, deliberate, and carried out with knowledge of exactly how and when she would be alone. The community of Brookhaven struggled to reconcile the tragedy with the season it occurred in, realizing the danger that had lurked behind normalcy and routine. Jennifer's life, once quiet and private, became a symbol of vulnerability when trust is misplaced. Her death changed the town's perspective forever. Though the killer faced justice, the memory of the Christmas Eve ambush remained. Jennifer Sebena's story reminded everyone that calculated violence often hides in plain sight, and that patience, opportunity, and betrayal can transform even the most peaceful nights into lasting tragedy.